Hello everybody, this is Billy Vitale from Music and Wellness, a channel dedicated to health from music. In this channel we do things around that theme, things including virtual playing, live music, music history, theory and practice, a lot of analysis on songs and some music lessons, particularly guitar playing. But today I have a series also dedicated to, and in the channel we have a series dedicated to the coronavirus and its analysis. And so that's what we're going to go cover today, in today's session 3 on coronavirus. So a question really becomes, why? What does this have to do with music and wellness? Health from music, what does it have to do? Does it have to do at all? And why am I putting efforts in this, and why are you listening to? The reason is very simple. It's because this virus, this pandemic, is affecting musicians, music lovers, everybody around the world. And the sooner it's over, the sooner we come to terms with it, the better off we are. So observing the data and the trends that are going on in the world is an important thing for people who love music, practice music. For the working musician, things will go back to normal where they can perform again, hopefully soon. Or what are the trends? What can we do to adapt to the situation? How long is this going to last? How do we prepare for it? We need to be ready. So I started this to try to find light at the end of the tunnel. And Italy was delaying in the effectiveness of their lockdown, and I was concerned, and that's how I started. But since I started collecting data, it's just expanded, and I spent a lot of time on this every day. So that's why, because it's important to us. It'll help us all, music lovers and people who use music for healthy reasons, how to deal with the current situation and adapt to it. The data sources I use are here listed. Those are the key ones. There's other ones depending on the analysis that I'm doing. So what I do is I collect this data. I keep my own little databases, and I do some analysis on that. I keep trends, a lot of data points. But that's what I do. And in this particular video, I'm going to be covering my countries I've been following more closely: Italy, US, Brazil. And then I'm going to show you the totals and trending by continent. And I'm going to show some also observations on lockdown, the success or failure of lockdown, and what's happening in lockdown. So we'll compare some countries where the lockdown has proven effective or is proving effective, and things that are underway. So let's take a look at that stuff. So that's what we're going to cover today, and we're going to start digging into the data right now. Okay, so let's take a look at the data for this week, the 19th week of 2020, and we're in the second week of May. So the first country I want to look at is Italy, and I actually have I've been doing some forecasting and some predictions based on the trends that I'm seeing from the weekly data. And I had anticipated 11,000 some odd new cases this week. Italy did great. They only had 9,500 new cases this week. So that was great. And if you look at their chart, which is here, you can see that they're really beyond the peak, the apex of the spread, and consistently going down week per week. Okay, that's good news. Next country, so let's look at the United States. United States didn't do as well as I had forecasted in my model. They actually were above what I thought they would get in about 12%. But you can see the numbers are very high with respect to Italy. 9,000 a week versus 193,000. If we look at the United States graph, we'll take a look here by selecting United States, and you'll see that they have reached sort of a maximum rate and tend to go down. But you can see the rate of descent is smaller than we're seeing in Italy. Okay. All right. So there we go. Italy doing well, going down, and the United States is trending down, which is good. Both countries are opening up. That is a risk factor, and hopefully they'll do it in a wise fashion so that things will not spread. First, hopefully we've learned enough and people will be conscientious enough to not let it spread. I'm sure if spread does happen, they'll start to close again. But anyway, let's look at Brazil. Brazil, I anticipated 42,000 and we having 61,500 plus. That graph would show like this. Again, this is data that I collect from the worldwide databases. Then I take it and put it in my databases, create these graphs and analysis, and do these different data points. So you can see Brazil, not good. We still don't have an apex. We don't have a peak number. It's just trending up for now. Okay, so that's the information we have. I'd like to take a look before we go into, and then I'm going to go back to these numbers to take a look at the effectiveness of lockdown. There's another website you can go. It's in actually a Wikipedia site that gives descriptions of the dates and how the lockdown was performed in each country. So that's useful. I'll put that link in the description as well. But here you can see when the lockdowns occurred for these three countries. Italy, after the first week of February and going into March, they knew they were in trouble with an epicenter in the north, and they started to lock down at that point. So they had around 800 cases when they started locking down. The United States delayed in locking down for another few weeks, towards the third week of March, and they had already 21,000 cases. Brazil also delayed, but it wasn't as bad as the United States. With 2,700 cases, they started to lock down in Rio and Sao Paulo. It was the third and fourth week in March, respectively. So, as you can see, though, with that red box indicates that there was when the peak was achieved. So in Italy, after 4 weeks, you can see they reached their peak and started to go down. And then in the United States, after 3 weeks, you seem to have a peak, and now sort of slowly going down. It's going down slower than Italy. But I'd like to use an example. I'm talking about lockdown now and the effectiveness of lockdown. And I want to remind people that lockdown is the only tool we have at this point to overcome the spread of the virus. There are over 215 pharmaceutical companies working on a treatment. There's a lot of talk of this treatment, that treatment working, and conspiracies and everything. I'm sure any of these companies have had successful treatment. It would be well known to everybody, and it would be used. Nobody's interest. I don't think there's anybody's interest not to have a cure or a test that is effective. So let's just look at what happened in China and in South Korea. You can see these two graphs respectively, China and then South Korea. In February, they started their lockdowns in late January for China and mid-February for South Korea. After, again, similar to Italy, China reached their peak after 4 weeks, and South Korea after 3. And then, but the thing that happened with them is we're seeing different from Europe, Italy, and other places, is that once they reached their peak, their lockdown was very effective. And it was a little what I was expecting to see in Italy, and that's why I got curious about the data and started analyzing it, because I wasn't seeing this decay that happened in these two countries in Italy. In fact, we saw how that curve was slower in descent than in these two countries. What that tells me is that lockdown does work. It works. It's just that, how rigid you are about doing it to be effective. And also how early on you did it. Because look here, they started at 21, very similar to even earlier than Italy, right? And South Korea started at 4 or 300. You may want to dispute these numbers here, maybe, but they started early. And that's what made those numbers not get so way out of hand that we see in other countries, perhaps. Again, this is just me looking at the data and drawing some logical conclusions. So lockdown is really effective. It works. We're seeing it finally in Italy. Again, I'm going to bring that chart up again, and you can take a look how that compares to the lockdowns that they've done in those other Asian countries, China and South Korea. You see, they reached the peak, very similar speed to the peak, similar, but the descent rate not as steep, which to me says that the lockdown was not as locked down as in the other countries. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to take a look at even a higher level. And again, my statistics are the data that comes out of the databases that are data is distributed widely. I'll give you the links. You can get the data. You can do your own analysis and draw your own conclusions. I do not really spend time on the local level, and a lot of people will dispute how these numbers are are valid or have value. I tend to believe that the bulk and high levels, the trends and similarities that you see give indications that are significant, again, at a high level. However, for your particular interest, I think really the local level is really where you got to look. And so if you're watching this and you're interested in this kind of information, clearly go to your local website, your community website, and see what's going on there, and above all, follow the guidelines that they put in place. So let me go even higher. And again, what does this have to do with music and wellness? It has to do with getting back to making music, performing live, or meantime trying to find ways to continue bringing music, keeping music in our lives. So it's good to have an outlook and get an idea and share information. I'm really looking for feedback from people. Please put comments in. But the next thing I want to go to is at a higher level, continental level. So I want to look at continents and see the data there. So let's take a look. Okay, why is that important? I mean, I don't think you look at this, but this virus is a pandemic. It affects the world. And it won't be over until it's put out all over the world. So we need to have an understanding of where we're at a global level. I'm going to go continent by continent and then come back to this chart, which shows you all the continents together. So let's start with Europe, where we saw the curve for Italy. Let's see how it looks for Europe. And amazingly, this data curve is very similar for Europe as a whole as it is for Italy. So as a whole, in Europe, the lockdowns are working. You can take a look at some of the individual countries here. Germany, look these last 2 weeks, about 3,000 less from last week. France actually went up. Oops. Anyway, Belgium down about 40%. Italy we saw down around 40% from last week. Netherlands down around 30%. Norway slightly down. Portugal slightly up. And that's another interesting one. Is Spain, of course, about 30% less with respect to last week. And Turkey also significant. You can see they're over their peak here from 31, 26, 17, now 13,000. Very good. Instead, we see that we have England, which is sort of plateauing. Several weeks, a slight decline, but very slight, almost like at the same level. So again, lockdown is not as being as effective as it could be. That's what that's telling me. So that's Europe looking good. It's looking good. Lockdown is being effective. Next continent I'd like to look at is North America, the United States, Mexico, Canada, and other countries. Looking at the major ones here, there you can see Canada is plateauing. Mexico is going up. The United States has a downward trend. Thank goodness. So there we go. And you can see how that's going. It's looking that it's starting to go down slowly, and hopefully next week we'll see some lower numbers. So Europe looking good. North America plateauing. South America is still going to reach the peak. They haven't reached. They keep climbing. Brazil leading the way with about 45% more cases than the last week. But other countries like Chile, Peru, also increasing. Chile almost doubling. Peru also went up slightly. Good news from Ecuador, it seems. So they seem to be getting a handle on the situation. So not so good news from South America. Asia. I guess we think that since China and South Korea got good results, that Asia was in good shape, but China and South Korea is not the entire continent, which has about 3 billion people. Okay, China's close to half. But you can see they're on the up, similar to South America, and that's due to countries like Russia, which is really getting out of control here. And we have India that's raising flags as well. You can see, look at this increase rates: 4,000, 7,000, 10,000, 12,000, 22,000 in the last several weeks from India. That's it's spreading exponentially there. So, and you see other countries here similar that have an upward trends, which makes this line go up. Other countries are dealing with it, or either plateauing or going down. But for the most part, these are the ones that we want to watch out for. And you can see Asia is not at its peak as a continental level. Okay, next one would be Africa. We have less people there, but it's still, and less data. So questionable about how much data we're getting. It probably is more spread than this, but the data that we do get is indicating an upward trend. So if we look at it on a global basis all along, I haven't shown you Oceania. Oceania, the numbers are here. You can see they sort of peaked out and seem to be going down, which is good news. But the numbers are very small there. It's a relatively small level population versus other continents such as Asia and Africa. Africa has over 1 billion people, so we shall see how that goes. But so here's where we at. You can see the blue and gray lines. The United States, we're seeing things tending down, which is good from Europe and North America. And we see Africa and Oceania. I'm sorry. That are showing. Well, really, like, if I want to show it in a graph, I have to show it like this. Let me show it to you. If you want to see them, because their numbers are so much smaller that you can't really tell unless you bring them to the forefront. So let's take a look. Let's do that. So you see the curves. So this is how they look. Africa, Oceania. See, Oceania has actually reached their peak and seems to have been going down. It's great news. So if you just compare that to Europe, you'll see. But the numbers are so much higher in Europe that you probably don't see it at all. So there you go. Okay, so let's look. So basically, what this is telling us that we're at a global level. We have the the virus is still spreading, and some continents like Europe are looking good, and Oceania are looking good. So we got to be really careful here. It's um, we have an upward battle still. Hopefully, there'll be some of those 215 pharmaceutical companies that are working on treatment will come through with something. We'll have better testing. We keep getting better tests and quicker ones. And I think that will allow us to gain control. And we'll learn as a society to adapt and to use social distancing in a very wise manner so we can come back to some normalcy and still use social distancing. And we have to go back to doing music and doing the things um, that make us more human. And so, again, this is Billy Vitale from Music and Wellness, signing out.